All right. Well, Jeannie, do you want to introduce yourself? Is this your first time at Gift? And once you're finished with that, let's jump right into your presentation.
Yes, hi. This is my first time presenting here with you guys. My name is Jeanie Miller, and I am a teacher in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
It's nice. All right. Do you have anything else to add, or do you want to get straight into your presentation?
All right. Well, once again, hi, everyone. I'm Jeanie Miller. I am a middle school teacher in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I've been teaching for 8 years. I teach math, science, and special education. And today I want to talk about a project called the Hawk's Nest. But really, this isn't just a story about redesigning a space, which is what we did at our school, but it's a story about what can happen when students are given ownership, when adults in a building decide to work together, and when we start recognizing that the work that we do in schools every day already contains meaningful stories that are worth telling. Too often, our school projects get presented as extras. They become side notes, nice ideas, fun moments, etc. But when they're done well, they're not extras at all. They are the work of school. They're where collaboration becomes real, where academic skills become useful, and where students begin to understand that learning has a purpose beyond compliance. So I want to share how the Hawk's Nest came to life, what our students learned from it, and why I think projects like this matter so much, especially in middle school. Before I explain the process, I want to show you the trailer for the documentary that we created about this project, because I really think it captures the energy of the work way better than I can in a few sentences.
Middle school is loud. It's crowded. It's complicated. And for a lot of kids, it's overwhelming. For decades, schools have asked students to fit into the system. What if the system learned to fit the students? At Hoover Middle School, a team of 6th grade teachers, in conjunction with the ASU Teaming Initiative, decided to try something different. Not a program, not a rule change, a redesign. They asked a simple question. What would school look like if students helped build it?
So this is our room that we're gonna do for the Hawk's Nest. And then this will be a gaming station. And then we could put a mini hoop right here. And then
it
a
could be like a basketball court.
Or a foos table right here.
The Hawk's Nest is a student-designed community space. A place to reset, to work, to present ideas, to breathe. But more than that, it's a place where students learn that their voices matter. Here, adults don't have all the answers. Students ask the questions. Students design the solutions. Students tell the story.
Can I have a little drum roll on the desk? The winners of the Hawk's Nest project are the Blue Hawks.
They're learning design, collaboration, problem solving, and something harder to measure: ownership.
And I'll say camera,
Rolling.
sound.
Rolling. I'm Zakira Boxton. I'm a 6th grader at Hoover Middle School.
This isn't just about a room. It's about reimagining what middle school can be. When students are trusted, they rise. This documentary was filmed in collaboration with Principals Sanchez and Medina, Hoover Middle School, and the Next Education Workforce Initiative from the Mary Lou Fulton College for Teaching and Learning Innovation at ASU.
What I love about it is that it shows that this project was never really about furniture. On the surface, the Hawk's Nest became a student space. So it was a place to gather, to work, to belong, etc. But underneath that, it was about something much bigger. It was about asking students to imagine a need in their environment, develop a vision, persuade others, respond to feedback, participate in a democratic process, and see that their ideas could lead to something real. That's a very different experience from simply being told what school is and where they fit inside it. Middle school students are at an age where they're constantly asking, even if they don't say it out loud, does my voice matter here? Do I have any influence over my environment? Is school something that happens to me, or is it something that I help shape? The Hawk's Nest gave students a real answer to those questions. So how it started. This project began in October with an assembly for our sixth graders. We wanted to do more than announce an idea. We wanted to launch a challenge. We wanted students to see that this wasn't going to be a pretend exercise where adults already had the answers. We wanted them to understand that they were going to help design something real for their school community. So the process started by inviting them into the problem. What kind of space would be useful? What did students need? What would make a shared space functional, welcoming, and worth investing in? From there, students submitted project ideas in their individual classes. That part mattered because it gave every student an entry point. This wasn't just for the loudest kids or for the kids who are always first to volunteer. It was structured so that everyone had a chance to think, create, and contribute. And that's one of the most important lessons in project-based work. Ownership doesn't happen by accident. You have to design for it. So if we want students to care, we can't just hand them a finished vision and ask them to be enthusiastic. We have to build a process where they can see themselves inside the work from the beginning. Once the students submitted their ideas in their individual classes, then they shared those ideas and voted on them. So from there, the winning groups or concepts moved on to the next phase where students created video presentations to advocate for their ideas. And that part was huge because now they're not just generating ideas, they're learning how to communicate them. They had to think about audience, clarity, persuasion, and presentation. And they had to explain why their idea mattered, how it would work, and why it deserved support. And then the entire sixth grade voted on those presentations. So within one project, students experienced brainstorming, design thinking, public communication, and democratic decision-making. They weren't completing isolated assignments for points. They were participating in a process that mirrored the real world. And this is what I mean when I say projects like this are more than creating a hangout space. In adult life, people identify needs, they pitch ideas, they collaborate, they revise, negotiate, fundraise, and then they build. And that's real work. And when students get to practice that kind of work in the school, learning becomes coherent. It starts to make sense. We ask teachers to identify their why. Why are you teaching? In this situation, we ask students to identify their why. Why are they doing this work? Why are they doing this assignment? And then suddenly presentation skills matter for a reason. Writing matters, collaboration matters, and revision matters. And there's reasons for all of them, not just to earn points, but to be a part of something. Students stopped asking, why are we doing this? Because the answer was right in front of them. One of the things that I care most about as an educator is helping students understand their why behind learning. And middle school students are certainly old enough to recognize when something feels disconnected. They know when an assignment is just an assignment. I think any student can tell you. They know when it's a worksheet just to do a worksheet, right? But they know when they're being asked to do something because it checks a box. But when learning is attached to a real purpose, everything changes. So with the Hawk's Nest, students were doing authentic work. They were identifying a community need, generating solutions, evaluating ideas, building consensus. They were presenting, they were problem solving. And yes, those are academic skills, but they're also life skills. And in a strong middle school program, those two things should never be separated. A project like this lets us take the real world tasks that adults deal with all the time and translate them into meaningful school experiences. Not fake simulations, not someday you might use this, actual useful work happening now. And that's where the value is. And it also changes how students see themselves. They stop being passive recipients at school and begin acting like participants, designers, contributors. And that shift is powerful. This project also worked because of something I believe strongly in, which is teaming in middle school. Middle school students are better served when adults work collaboratively instead of operating like isolated islands. Students don't experience their day in neat departmental boxes. They experience school as one giant ecosystem. So when adults build teaming structures and work together intentionally, students feel that. The Hawk's Nest was not the work of one classroom or one teacher acting alone. It was a team effort. And that matters because projects like this require an immense amount of coordination. They require shared vision, communication across classes and roles. They require adults to be willing to say, this is worth doing, and we're going to build it together. And teaming makes that possible. It also models something important for students. If we want students to collaborate, adults have to demonstrate collaboration. If we want students to think beyond their individual assignments, adults have to think beyond their individual classrooms. This project became stronger because multiple adults contributed different strengths. Some supported the student process, some helped shape logistics, some wrote grants, some helped communicate, and some helped make the vision physically happen. And that's what a healthy school culture should look like. And let's be honest, good ideas don't automatically become reality in schools. A lot of us have had that experience where something meaningful could happen, but it stalls because there's no buy-in, coordination, or shared ownership among adults. So part of this story is also about the adult side of the work. Making a project like this happen required collaboration with other teachers in the building. It required communication. It required people being willing to align around a common goal, and it required trust. And I think that matters just as much as the student piece, because if we want schools to become more creative, more collaborative, and more student-centered, adults have to be willing to do that work too. We can't ask students to take risks and share ideas and revise and work through differences if the adults around them are unwilling to do the same. Projects like the Hawk's Nest invite adults to move out of silos and into shared purpose, which can be uncomfortable sometimes because shared work is messy. It takes more communication, it takes flexibility, and a great deal of patience. But it's worth it because students can feel the difference between a school where adults are fragmented and a school where adults are building something together. Another important part of this project was that it reached beyond the classroom and into the broader community. Once students had gone through the design and voting process, adults helped carry the work forward in practical ways. We had architects come in and map out the room. The teachers wrote grants and were accepted. Community members donated furniture. Families in the wider school community became part of making the vision real. We had a red carpet premiere of the documentary for the families just Thursday. And that's another powerful lesson for students, because students got to see that ideas don't become reality through wishful thinking. They become reality through planning, advocacy, generosity, persistence, and collective effort. Now the project is no longer a classroom exercise. It's a case study in how communities function. And students see that different people bring different resources to a shared goal. Some people generate ideas, some organize, some fund, some build, some support, and some communicate. And that is civic learning. That's community learning. And that is school is at its best. When parents and community members are invited into work like this, they're not just being asked to attend an event or sign a form. They're being given a meaningful way to participate in the life of the school. And that kind of involvement builds trust. It creates pride and it helps people feel connected to what students are doing. There was none of that. What did you do at school today? Oh, nothing. No. Parents got to see their kids in a documentary. They got to walk the red carpet, take pictures. They got to tour the Hawk's Nest, all on Thursday. One reason that I wanted to document this project is because I think schools are full of stories like this, and too often we miss them. Teachers and students around the globe are doing meaningful work every day. They're solving problems, creating things, helping one another, revising ideas, building community, and learning how to navigate the world. But unless we stop and name the story, the value can get lost. When we identify the story in the project, we help students understand what they are really doing, not just making presentations. They're advocating. They're not just voting. They're participating in a democratic process. They're not just designing a space. They're learning how communities imagine, plan, and build. And they're not just sitting in school. They're shaping it. And that shift in framing matters because, especially in middle school, students want meaning. They want relevance. They want to know that what they're doing counts and applies to the real world. And honestly, adults need that reminder too. In education, we're often so busy doing the work that we don't always step back and recognize the deeper narrative inside of it. When we do, we're better able to communicate the value of our programs, involve others in the work, and create learning experiences that feel purposeful instead of performative. Middle school is such an important age for this kind of work. It's an age where students are developing identity. They're deciding who they are, what they're capable of, whether or not they belong, and whether their ideas have value. It's also an age where disengagement can begin very quickly if students feel powerless, disconnected, or constantly managed. Projects like the Hawk's Nest push in the opposite direction. They tell students, you have ideas worth hearing, you can help build something real, and your learning has a purpose. You're not just here to comply, you're here to contribute. And I think it should shape how we approach middle school more broadly. Not every project has to look like this one, but the principles are what matter. Student voice, authentic tasks, collaboration, adult teamwork, community involvement, and a clear connection between learning and purpose. And when those pieces come together, school becomes more than a schedule. It becomes a place where students can practice being thoughtful, capable, and engaged members of a community. So when I talk about the Hawk's Nest, I'm not just talking about a redesigned space. I'm not talking about bean bags. I'm not talking about snacks and paintings on the wall. I'm talking about what becomes possible when we trust students with real ownership. I'm talking about what happens when adults in a building work together instead of alone. I'm talking about inviting parents and community members into a meaningful partnership. And I'm talking about the importance of finding a story in the work that we are already doing so that students understand the why behind the learning and see themselves as part of something bigger. The Hawk's Nest began with an idea, but it became a process of design, collaboration, communication, and shared investment. That's what made it valuable. The finished space matters, yes, of course, but the learning that built it matters more. If we want schools to feel meaningful, we have to create opportunities for students to do meaningful work. We have to let them imagine, design, vote, advocate, revise, and build. And we have to help them understand that learning isn't separate from life. it's practice for participating in it. Thank you. I'd like to add right here, we have an ASU article that was written about our group doing this work, and then the link to the full documentary with QR codes. So if you have your phones open while you're watching the presentation, you can certainly scan and get those links, but we'll also add those to the chat as well.
That was that was amazing. Just
Thank you.
before I move on to my questions, I just want to say the way you conveyed it was really amazing. You made people really empathize with the students, then understand. So I really like the roller coaster you took us through, like your modulation in your voice. So that's just
Thank you.
really. Yeah. Paula, at the beginning, I think you said you had a special connection with their topic. So, do you want to start off the questions?
Oh, sure. I'm a retired public school teacher as well, design thinking TOSA. So you are just singing my song. Thank you. It's so encouraging to see this in practice. As you know, we need so much more of it. And I really appreciated all the documentation that's so important. And I look forward to watching the documentary, and congratulations on the involvement with ASU. My question is, I actually have, well, I'll start with one. My main question is, what sort of feedback did you collect from students and from educators or staff members in order to compile and synthesize the whole of the experience?
Oh my gosh. Well, the students have been integral to the process the entire way. And in fact, we created a whole documentary team of students. They wrote the questions that so we interviewed 4 staff members for the documentary. They came up with the questions. They did all the recording. They did the sound. They did all of those things. They were really integral to the process the whole way through.
Wow, that's so encouraging. Since the beginnings of design thinking really entering education, and now it's transforming more into humanity-centered design, and that tenet of designing with your people instead of for your people. You really
Right.
embody that. And I was also really I had written down the word trust early on as a question. I was going to ask you about how did you build trust amongst the adults? And you definitely answered that, because I know in my experience, we came up a lot of times with educators who are very well meaning, but they didn't trust that the kids would really get much out of it, or that they could be capable of having empathy or novel solutions, or in a collaborative way letting go of an idea that's so hard. So those sorts of ahas that the adults transformed through were really, really powerful. And I wonder, maybe your institution has had more experience in building that. I wondered, if you wanted to speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, so our administration and ASU initiated the collaboration process, and they actually built in time in our schedule so that our team of sixth grade teachers, we met uninterrupted every single day the entire school year for a whole class period. So everybody in the school had to make changes and sacrifices in order to allow us to do this. So that was our first trust, right? The administration trusting us to use that time to our benefit. And then as adults, we had to grow to trust each other. As teachers, we are isolated almost all day. And so learning to work together had its bumpy roads here and there. And, at first we floundered, and then we kind of worked our way through it. We had our, I don't want to say arguments, but misunderstandings, which required some negotiating through, And then we had to, like you said, we had to learn to trust that the kids were going to make good choices. The room that they designed was 100% student led. We got everything that they asked for in their proposal. We got everything that the winning proposal proposed. They wanted a bluey rug, for example. It's prominently featured in the documentary, this bluey rug, but so they have a bluey rug, you know, and there was no no's involved in this. We trusted them with their room design. Their room design has been implemented precisely the way they voted for it. So that's been fantastic. And then this, of course, allowed us to open up to other new interdisciplinary projects. So we did a Greek night and we combined it with our star party. So we had, you know, the connection between science with the constellations and the Greek and Roman gods, and etc. And this work is just the beginning. This is just the first year we're doing this, you know.
Wow.
So yeah, and so I think it's going to be super exciting next year, and it's going to get even bigger.
That's incredible. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Of course, I believe in this, and so I want others to, and this will help spread that infectious joy of learning for everyone. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, and we're expanding it to 7th and 8th grade next year too. We started with a pilot program of 6th grade. Now the whole school gets involved next year. So it's going to be fantastic.
Wow.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
So, what the takeaway or like the ultimate thing that the students should get at the end of it? Was the takeaway the journey or the solution in this Hawk Nest project?
I think it's really about both, right? It's about the fact that they now know that they can do big things and they're trusted to do them, and the adults will implement them as they requested. And I think that gives them a great deal of confidence in themselves. And then in addition, they've literally made their mark on the school because they each got to paint a brick. And those will be there forever. It's a lasting mark. So I think their takeaway really is both, you know, it's the journey and it's the fact that they made this thing and it actually happened. And I think that's pretty powerful.
Thank you. Again, that was an amazing presentation.
Thank you. Thank you all for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.